Chapter 1. There are some definite problems associated with being a single mom who is trying to raise a teenage son and work full-time. The other day is a case that best exemplifies this point. It was my son Richard's 15th birthday, and he and I were supposed to be going out to dinner to celebrate this occasion. However, at the last minute, I found out that I had to work late in order to complete a rush project that absolutely had to be shipped that night. I called Richard as soon as I found out, apologizing profusely to him for having to cancel our special dinner and promising him that I would make it up to him some other time. While he seemed to be very disappointed, he understood that sometimes the demands of the workplace are overriding. He said that we could reschedule our dinner date for another time, which would be fine with him. I finished up the project around 9 p.m. and quickly headed for home, tired but happy. When I got home, the house was completely dark, except for a light in Richard's room. Oh well, I thought, he must be on the computer, something that he spends a lot of time doing. As I walked in, I called out to let him know I was home. However, I received no response, so I went up to his room to check and see if he was all right. Strangely, his door was closed. I didn't give it any thought as I proceeded to go in. After I saw my son sitting there at his computer, I understood why his door was closed. He was sitting there in front of his computer wearing a girl's skirt and blouse and apparently the appropriate lingerie also. When he saw me in his room, he quickly tried to cover himself. "Wah, what are you doing? And why are you dressed in girl's clothing?" I stopped for a moment and looked closely at the computer screen. I noticed a message at the bottom of the screen that read connected to chat room as user Renee. I looked at Richard and asked, "And what is the meaning of this message at the bottom of your computer screen? Who is Renee? Are you Renee?" When I finally settled down some, he tried to explain everything to me. "Mom, I have been fascinated with girls' clothes, both their lingerie and their outerwear, for several years. No, this does not mean that I crave to go out and attract boys while dressed like this. I still want to date girls. I have been dressing in secret for the last 2 years. I have a small collection of things that I have bought out of my allowance. I wear them when I am sure that I will be alone. I have even been shaving my arms and my legs for several months now. Tonight, I was so disappointed that we were not going out to dinner on my birthday that I got dressed in this outfit and went online to visit my friends in this chat room. Renee is my feminine identity that I use when I am online chatting." Needless to say, after hearing this outpouring from my son, I was a bit surprised. However, I did manage to ask him about the chat room. "It's for people like me," he replied. When I asked him if he meant teenagers, he said, "Some are. Most, however, are guys who just enjoy wearing various women's things. They regularly come here to chat about being and feeling feminine and to play out their feminine fantasies with others while on the computer." I stood there, looking at my son dressed as a teenage girl, thinking about all that I had heard. Richard started to apologize for shocking me and said that he would change back into his normal male clothes. Before he could take off anything, I stopped him. I went over and sat on his bed and said, "You know, Richard, or should I say Renee, you really look quite cute, sitting there dressed in your skirt and blouse. Are you wearing lingerie also?" Renee slowly nodded her head and said that he had on a bra, panties, garter belt and stockings under his blouse and skirt. I continued, "With a little makeup and some styling of your hair, you would be very pretty." Now it was Richard's turn, rather Renee's turn, to be surprised. I guess that I should use Renee when he is dressed as a girl. She looked at me with those big serious, blue eyes of hers and asked me if I were just kidding him. I assured him that I was completely serious in what I had just said. I then asked her if she would like to see for herself how she would look with some makeup and her longish blonde hair styled more effeminately. Renee simply nodded her head, almost too surprised to speak. Before we started, I asked Renee how she achieved the appearance of having breasts. She indicated that she had filled water balloons and then put them into nylon knee-highs before inserting them into her bra cups. My scowl expressed my obvious displeasure with this method of padding. I said I would help her with her hair and makeup if she would get rid of the water balloons. When Renee looked at me questioningly, I assured her that I had a better alternative for proper padding. I said that I would meet her in my room in a few minutes. When Renee walked in, I noticed her now flattened chest. I quickly remedied that when I lovingly unbuttoned her blouse a little and put a pair of realistic B-sized breast forms inside her bra cups. Before Renee could ask me when and where I had gotten them, I explained that I had had them since I was an impatient, underdeveloped teenager, only slightly younger than she was now. As nature provided me with my own natural resources, I no longer needed these breast forms. I had just kept them as a remembrance of my youth. I then had Renee sit on the bench facing away from my vanity. Using a towel around her shoulders to protect her clothes, I started on her makeup. With foundation and powder, I formed the basis of Renee's makeup. A little blush on the cheekbones and a little eyeshadow on the lids helped to play up Renee's natural complexion. Creamy lipstick on her lips helped to complete her makeup. I then used a spray water bottle, my brush, and my comb to work on her hair. After combing it to remove the tangles, I used some styling mousse as I combed and brushed her hair. Finally, I was satisfied with the results that I had achieved. When Renee was allowed to see the end product, all she could say was wow. Is that really me? I assured her that she was indeed looking at her own reflection. I looked at the clock and realized how late it was. I told Renee she could sleep with her makeup on and I would show her how to cleanse her face in the morning. I also told her that tomorrow night we would have our postponed birthday celebration. Renee seemed happy about that. Since she didn't have one of her own, I let Renee borrow one of my satin nightgowns. Granted, it was a little big on her, but she appreciated it all the same. She looked darling wearing a long, lavender, lacy satin nightgown. One big hug and then it was lights out for the evening. Chapter 2. The next morning, I had Richard get up early so that he could learn how to properly remove his makeup and cleanse his face. When he got out of bed, he looked so cute wearing my satin nightgown. I showed him how to completely remove his makeup and then how to cleanse his face and moisturize it once the makeup was off. I made sure that he was ready for school on time and told him not to delay coming home, since he had to get ready for our dinner date. He smiled at me when I said that and said he would be home on time. After he left, I phoned my office to tell them that after my long stay last night, I was taking the day off and using some of my comp time that I had accumulated with all of these rush last-minute projects. My boss had no problem with my taking off and she hoped that I would have an enjoyable day. I assured her that I would. I quickly bathed, dressed in my nice satin lingerie, sleeveless blouse, denim skirt, knee-highs and flats. I did my makeup and hair so that I, at least, looked presentable to the world. A more careful job would be done tonight when I took Renee out for her birthday. I then headed to the mall to get Renee some nice clothes, including a nice outfit for her birthday dinner. I knew this was going to be an expensive shopping trip, but Renee was certainly well worth the expense. Once at the mall, I went into the women's department of a major store. First, I selected several bras for Renee. Since she had admitted to wearing women's clothing for some time, I wanted to make sure that she would be able to have a suitable wardrobe for the future. Matching satin panties were selected and added to my intended purchases. At one point, the saleslady assisting me asked about the quantities of apparel I was buying. I told her that it was my daughter's birthday and I wanted to have a new wardrobe for her. She said that my daughter must be very special. I assured her that Renee was, indeed, a special person. A few garter belts, 3 full slips, 2 camisoles and 2 half slips were added to my growing pile of apparel. The last lingerie that I got was sleepwear, getting 3 long nightgowns, 3 waltz-length nightgowns and 3 baby doll nightgowns. All were in the softest, most feminine colors and were adorned with lace. I then selected outerwear for my new daughter. Several skirts, some full and some straight, all knee-length, and several blouses in a variety of styles were selected also. All of the blouses were soft and silky feeling and looked very feminine. Lastly, I got my Renee a few dresses. All were full-skirted and softly feminine and suitable either for church or for going out to dinner. Just as I was ready to finish my shopping, I saw the ideal dress, one that Renee would look absolutely darling in at dinner tonight. It was a dark green, satiny sheath with short sleeves and a straight neckline. It was the only one of this style on the rack. Fortunately, it was the correct size for Renee. I just knew she would love it. After I checked out, I had quite a few packages. The sales lady, seeing my dilemma, got one of the stock boys to help cart my purchases to the car. I tipped him a few dollars for assisting me. On the way home, I stopped at the shoe store and got Renee heels to match her dresses and skirts. All were 2-inch heels or less. I believe that there is enough time later for a young lady to graduate to higher heels. I then quickly hurried home so that I could be completely dressed when my lovely daughter got home from school. Although it took a few trips, I quickly got all of the packages into the workroom. I had already separated out those packages, which contained Renee's outfit for tonight. I called the restaurant and made our reservation for dinner. I asked specifically for a table in the center of the room, since we would be celebrating my daughter Renee's birthday and I wanted to show her off. The hostess assured me that it would not be a problem. After a quick shower, I did my hair using a curling iron and styling gel. I then started to get dressed. My lingerie was all in royal blue satin, including my garter belt. My black stockings were in place on my legs. My blue satin dress with front buttons to the waist, a full skirt, short sleeves, and a collar was my dress of choice for this special evening with my daughter. My makeup matched and complemented my outfit. A spray of perfume was the final touch. I then slipped on my 3-inch heels and waited for my Richard/Renee to get home. I couldn't wait to see her face when she saw her outfit for tonight. Chapter 3. Richard was right on time in getting home. When he walked in, I gave him a big hug. I told him to take a quick bath and to make sure that he shaved completely. I emphasized completely so that he knew I meant his arms, legs, and all points in between. He looked at me quizzically but assured me that he would do it. I also suggested that he use my lilac bath talc after he had dried off. He asked me if that wasn't a bit feminine for a guy going out to dinner. I simply assured him that it would make him feel so much nicer after his bath. I was sitting on the bed in Richard's room when he walked in from his bath. I was pleased to see that he had wrapped his towel around his body just like a woman. I smiled at his thoughtfulness. His body smelled delightfully like lilacs. I indicated to him that his clothes were on the bed. I know he expected to see his suit, shirt, and tie laid out for him. However, all he saw were several bags sitting on his bed. When he opened the first bag and saw the satin lingerie, he started to smile. I looked at him and said, "Richard, granted we missed your birthday last night. However, today, let's celebrate a new birthday, the birthday of Renee. Tonight, I want to take you to dinner as my daughter and celebrate your new femme persona. After you have your lingerie on, I will help you with your hair and makeup." Renee was so pleased with my comments that she was simply beaming. When she started to exhibit a little modesty concerning removing her towel in my presence, I reminded her that I would not be seeing anything new or different that I hadn't already seen before with her. With that, Renee proceeded to drop her towel and stood naked before me as she began to put on her lingerie. I had gotten her white satin lingerie for this special evening. Quickly, she fastened the garter belt around her waist and slid her panties up her long smooth legs. She then put her black nylons on and properly fastened them. After hooking her bra in back, she picked up her breast forms and put them into the cups of her lacy, satiny bra. I could tell that she was enjoying every second of this experience. Before I allowed her to continue dressing, I had Renee put a sanitary pad into her panties. It will help to tuck you in and give you a more feminine front to your panties. It will also serve to protect you in case you have an accident tonight. She smiled at me and then properly positioned the pad in her panties. She then put on her heels so that her feet could get used to the new shoes. After she had put on her white full-length slip, I took her to my vanity to do her hair and makeup. Even without makeup, she looked pretty sitting there in her lingerie. While I wanted to set her hair in rollers, I realized that joy would have to wait until another time. Using a spray bottle, styling gel, my curling iron and a brush, I fashioned a rather nice feminine style for Renee. With the brushing and teasing of the hair, it had more fullness. I was able to flip the ends under and arrange her hair so that it nicely framed her face. I also styled some of the hair in front into bangs. I then had Renee cover her eyes while I sprayed her new style with a generous amount of hairspray. I then set to work doing Renee's makeup. I believe that a 15-year-old does not need much makeup to enhance her natural, youthful beauty. This was the case with my Renee. As I did last night, I used the foundation and the powder to provide a good basis. Some eyeshadow on her lids and a little mascara on her lashes served to highlight and emphasize her eyes. I then applied some blush to her cheekbones to add a little color to her face. For a brief instant, it seemed strange to be there applying cosmetics to the face of my lingerie-clad son. I immediately dismissed that thought and continued working on Renee's makeup. Using lipstick, I carefully outlined Renee's lips before applying several coats of the creamy substance to her lips, giving them a rich, full appearance. I then had her blot the excess lipstick on a tissue. When Renee saw herself for the second time in makeup, she was even more amazed at her appearance than she had been last night when I first had used cosmetics on her face. She just sat and stared at her reflection for quite some time before she smiled and thanked me for making her so pretty. While Renee sat admiring herself, I went and got her jewelry. I had her put on a pair of pearl clip-on earrings and a single-strand pearl necklace. I jokingly suggested to Renee that, one day, we should have her ears pierced because there were so many more feminine earrings for pierced ears. I was slightly surprised when Renee agreed with me and said she was looking forward to the day when she could get her ears pierced. I told Renee that we had to get a move on if we were going to be on time for our reservation at the restaurant. I went and got her dress out of the protective plastic. Renee stood and allowed me to lower the sheath down onto her body. The dark green, satiny material looked great against her coloring and the sheath fit her perfectly. As I zipped the back up, I heard Renee sigh deeply. I asked her if there was anything the matter. "No, Mom," she replied. "Nothing is the matter. Everything is just so perfect. I love being Renee and seeing your acceptance of her. I love the feel of my lingerie and walking in these heels. And, Mom, my dress is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for everything tonight." With that, she smiled at me, reached out and gave me a big hug. I almost cried over my daughter's happiness. Fortunately, I was able to keep my emotions under control. If I hadn't, I think we would both have shed tears of joy. I then handed Renee her matching purse, which contained some makeup, tissues, wallet and keys, and told her we should be on our way. Chapter 4. It was very interesting to watch Renee during our trip to the restaurant. She had walked very elegantly to the car. Before she got in, she asked me the proper way to enter the passenger's side when wearing a skirt. I briefly explained how a woman gets in and seats herself. I then watched as Renee entered gracefully. During the drive, Renee kept her hands folded in her lap. When she spoke, I noticed a definite softening of her voice. She was working very hard to sound like a teenage girl. My heart was filled with pride at my beautiful daughter sitting there beside me. I told her that she really did look very pretty and that I was glad to have finally been able to meet Renee after all of this time that she had been hidden from me. Renee actually blushed when I told her that I was enjoying having my new daughter there with me. At the restaurant, I turned the car over to valet parking as Renee and I exited the car. Again, she was the picture of grace as she stood from a somewhat awkward sitting position. She made sure that her dress was not clinging anywhere as she carefully smoothed her skirt. A few of the young men assisting with the valet parking took more than a casual notice of Renee as we walked into the restaurant. I could see her blush at the admiring glances she was receiving. As we walked, I told her that she should simply enjoy being admired since she was so pretty. This caused Renee to blush even more. Once inside, I informed the hostess that we had a reservation and gave our name. After checking her list, she smiled at us, picked up menus and led us to a table in the center of the room, exactly as I had asked for. As we were seated, the hostess looked at Renee, wished her a happy birthday and told her how nice she looked this evening. Although she blushed again, she accepted the compliment with style and grace and thanked the hostess for her kind words. As she sat, she carefully smoothed the skirt of her dress under her. When we ordered our meal, I noticed that Renee ordered a small, sensible meal as a woman or young lady would, instead of a meal loaded with a lot of fried foods like the typical male teenager enjoys. As I looked on approvingly after she had indicated her choices to the server, Renee smiled at me and said, "Mom, a girl has to always watch her figure even when she eats out on her birthday. Also, I have to keep from eating a lot of greasy food so that my complexion will stay as nice and fresh as it is." She was truly behaving like the young lady that she wanted to be. During the meal, we chatted about many things in general. She was watching me eat and trying to mimic my actions. I offered her some pointers on how a woman eats her meal, from the quantity of food at any time on her fork to how to properly hold her dinner napkin on her lap. After the server had cleared away the dinner dishes, we were sitting there discussing the merits of having dessert and coffee or just having coffee. Our server reappeared, carrying a small cake with a lighted candle. Several of the other servers followed her to our table. As she put the cake in front of Renee, the entire group joined in singing happy birthday to Renee. I then told her to make a wish and blow out the candle, which she did. All of the serve staff wished Renee a happy birthday and to have many more. I am glad none of them asked her how old she was because I think Renee might have told them that it was her first birthday, which, in a sense, it was. While enjoying the cake, I asked Renee what she had wished for. She looked at me with a shy smile on her face and said that she had wished that this night would never end. She was so enjoying being Renee. I told her that, in some ways, it might not ever end. She looked at me questioningly as I explained my response. I told her that she still had her birthday presents at home to open. When she started to protest, saying that the dinner and the wonderful dress and lingerie were more than enough, I hushed her and told her that she deserved some birthday presents as well. She pressed me to find out what I had for her. I simply said that I wanted Renee to be more than a once-in-a-while visitor in our home. Even though Renee kept asking me, I would not tell her any more about her presents. After we settled the check, I suggested to Renee that we visit the ladies' room before departing for home. She seemed a little reluctant to go into this feminine sanctuary, perhaps fearing discovery, until I reminded her that everyone, without question, had accepted her as Renee. She seemed more comfortable, after that assurance, of relieving herself in the proper room. I also reminded her to be careful of her dress and lingerie as she sat down and to properly wipe herself before repositioning everything. When she came out of the stall, Renee smiled at me, indicating that everything was all right. After washing and drying our hands, Renee checked her makeup in the mirror. Since she felt that her lipstick needed freshening, she pulled the gold tube from her purse and carefully coated her lips and then blotted them. As we left the restaurant and waited for the car, Renee was again the subject of many admiring glances from the young men that were around. This time, Renee stood there, smiling at the attention she was receiving. My daughter continued to make me proud. Chapter 5. After we got home, I had Renee go and sit in the family room and wait for me. I then gathered up some of the packages and brought them in with me. I noticed that Renee was sitting very ladylike in the chair, feet flat on the floor, knees together, sitting not slouching. As I put the packages beside her, I knew that Renee would recognize the store name on them and have some inkling of her presence. However, I would not let her start opening any of them until they were all there before her. A second trip to the workroom enabled me to bring in the rest of Renee's presents. As Renee opened each bag, she oohed and awed over the selection of clothing that she was receiving. She particularly liked the various pieces of satin lingerie that I had gotten for her. She thought the dresses, blouses, and skirts were very pretty. While she loved the various pairs of heels, she did express the desire for something more than 2-inch heels. I told her to be patient, that there would be a day when I might allow her to get higher heels. Renee was thrilled when I said this. The last present that she opened contained all of the nightgowns that I had gotten for her. As she looked and felt each one, she told me how beautiful they were and how nice they felt. I told her that I hoped that she would enjoy wearing each and every one of them. Since it was late, I told Renee to leave everything in the family room and we would put it away tomorrow. She asked if it made a difference which nightgown that she wore tonight. My response was to select whatever she wanted. With that, she reached out and picked up the long satin nightgown in pink. Renee had actually picked out my favorite. I suggested that she go up to her room and get ready for bed. I would be along shortly to tuck her in. Renee smiled, took her nightgown and almost floated off to her room. I straightened up the family room a little and then went up to Renee's room to say goodnight. She had already changed into her nightgown and cleansed her face. She looked so angelic wearing pink. I sat on the edge of her bed and talked with her for a bit. Renee told me what a good time she had at dinner. She thanked me for all of the wonderful clothes I had gotten for her. I told her again how wonderful it was to have a son and how equally wonderful it was now having a daughter. I then asked Renee if she would like to have Girls' Day Saturday, where we would both get our hair done professionally, have makeup consultations and get her ears pierced. Maybe we would even visit the local photographic studio and have glamour shots taken of each of us wearing gowns or other fancy things. Renee thought that these suggestions would be absolutely wonderful and that she would look forward to doing all of them. With that, I leaned down and kissed her goodnight. After making sure that she was properly tucked in, I wished her pleasant dreams. Renee looked at me, smiled and said, "Mom, they will all be sweet, pleasant, feminine dreams." I'm sure that they will be.